Behind this intriguing entrance lies Sunnymeade, a garden that's evolved over 15 years of continual creativity, and you're invited to check it out. Let's go behind the garden gate. These giant stringybarks must be over 100 years old, and they really are the feature of this property. When the owners were walking down this street some 20 years ago, they stumbled across this vacant block of land and instantly fell in love with these big, old, gnarly trees. And straight away, they bought the property, built their house, and then their garden. We're in the coastal town of Anglesea in Victoria. This garden is owned and designed by Peter Shaw and his wife Simone. Although this garden was finished planting 15 years ago, its evolution has changed throughout those last 15 years as their 4 children have grown up. Once upon a time, these trees had cubby houses and platforms in them, and there was even a flying fox that zoomed overhead. But now the kids are growing up, they've taken those down and can appreciate the trees in a different way. These rolling mounds of grass here, which just look amazing, weren't originally here. It was once upon a time just a flat patch of lawn, but how much more interesting are all these mounds? It's a favourite spot to sit down and have a picnic with wine and cheese. The plant choices in this garden are tough and hardy ones. They've got to survive under gum trees and in harsh coastal conditions. The plantings are a mix of hardy Indigenous species and other natives, as well as some exotics thrown in as well. I also love the combination of the form and the shape of the round structures mixed together with the strappy leaf plants for movement. And wow, what a time to visit. The Guiamea lilies are in full flower and they are huge. Unlike the other houses in the street, this front yard really is the backyard. It's the space for kids to play and for family and friends to gather. So unlike many front yards, this space has different rooms and places to explore. Obviously here we have a fire pit space, which in the summer months is turned into a lovely water bowl, so you can sit down and reflect. But in the winter months, yes, you'll find a roaring fire in here. But because of these different spaces, this area feels a lot bigger than it is. Each path that you meander down leads you into a completely different place, and there's always something to explore. You can see the circles repeated here again with some lovely correas, some westringias, and I mean look, even the compost bins around. Gorgeous. This driveway's actually had a few different evolutions throughout the garden's history as well. Originally, Peter and Simone really wanted the driveway to be an informal approach to the house, so they had it just as lawn, and the cars drove over mostly a grassy patch to access the garage. And like so many other beach houses in the area, this looked really quaint, but it wasn't necessarily all that practical. So instead, they've settled on this approach where it's got a little bit of gravel, but I love the way that the plants encroach and they've even planted down the centre. A little collection of round veggie boxes filled with herbs and hardy veggies takes advantage of this full sun spot. And I love this rustic screen here. It's sturdy and strong, and yet it's so eclectic and whimsical at the same time. Over here we've got a bougainvillea, which in full flight is bright pink, and a Virginia creeper over here, which when they're in full leaf, really fill out this area nicely. Let's go and explore back here. It's the sweetest potting area back here, but straight away I am hit with the fragrance of this native mint. It's a great reminder that if you've got things with fragrant foliage, plant them near pathways where you're forced to brush past them, and then you'll get the scent much more regularly. This lean-to glass house and this green wall, and beyond that is a little potting bench, all add extra usable space in this garden. Not an inch is wasted, and I can see a really inviting spot to tinker about for a few hours, either in the glass house or over here on the potting bench. We all need a spot where we can pot, tinker and propagate, and I love that this spot just has such a personality about it. You might have thought that clipped hedges and formed shapes like these wistringias and sea box you see around me are only the type of thing that you'd see in a formal or heavily structured garden. But Sunnymeade proves otherwise. And I love that Peter and Simone have a very casual approach to their garden. They don't mind if they're forced to make change due to things falling down or dying, which happens to these wistringias about every 5 or so years. They get replaced. And instead they embrace that need to change. They embrace the opportunity to plant new things and to try something new. We're heading down towards the house now, but you can't help yourself. You want to stop and pause every time you spot one of these whimsical or quirky sculptures in the garden. You'll notice that as we come down towards the house, you'll start to see more of these stone walls. You'll also notice that the surface under our feet has changed. If you look closely, you can actually spot that this is shell grit. You might have already spotted some glimpses of orange, but you'll notice that as we approach the house, the intensity of orange increases and it makes a real impact. This space is giving sunken courtyard vibes and it feels completely enveloped by the house. It's really cosy. Hello. Hi. Let me introduce you to Charlie, their Pistachio Tree. Now this is a passive solar house designed with sustainability in mind. So when this pistachio is in full leaf, it actually provides protection from these north-facing windows of the home, which helps to keep it cooler in summer. Yes, it does! It's not every day I get to shoot in a garden where the designer and the owner is also a published author. If you'd like to learn more about the history and the story of this garden and the house, then I highly encourage you to get this book. The book includes not only the story of Sunnymeade, this garden, but also several others that Peter, Simone and their team have designed. The first time I saw this curvy, wavy bench, I complimented Peter on how well its curvy shapes tied in with the other circles and round edges in the garden. And he said, well, there's actually a funny story to that. So when they ordered the steel beams that helped to create that floating illusion on the wall, when these steel beams arrived, they actually came in different lengths by mistake. And so instead of dealing with that problem, they adapted, and a curvy bench seat we have. It's a big block, and yes, as I told you, the house is completely at the back of the property, making the front yard the hero. But there is a teeny tiny backyard space back here, It's mostly for these screening melaleucas, but I love the fact that they've still squeezed in some really quirky sculptures. And these look like they're all made out of offcuts and things they've had lying around. So what can we take away from this garden? I think it's full of so many inspirational ideas that so many of us can use in our own spaces at home. One of the big key messages I hear from this garden is don't be afraid of plant repetition. If you find something that works, if you find something that thrives, repeat it, plant more of it, because it helps to make your garden feel more cohesive. And we all want a garden space that's relaxing, enjoyable, and as tough and hardy as this one.